Ranking Member Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Fed has been plagued by deeply disturbing ethics scandals in recent years involving at least 6 Fed officials. So it's critical that the next chair have no financial conflicts, none. You have more than $100 million in investments that you have refused to disclose to ethics officials and to the public. So let me ask, do the Juggernaut Fund or the THSDFS LLC invest in any companies affiliated with President Trump or his family, companies that have facilitated money laundering, Chinese-controlled companies, or financing vehicles established by Jeffrey Epstein?
Senator Warren, thank you. So let me first share a point of agreement with you. The Fed has 2 tools. One is its monetary policy, and the second is its credibility. And the scandals that you talked about, the ethics problems you talked about, went to the core of the credibility that has hurt the Fed.
Could you answer my question, please? I ask. You have $100 million in undisclosed assets. And what I'm asking is, are any of those with this outfit that invests in companies affiliated with President Trump or his family, companies that have facilitated money laundering, Chinese-controlled companies, or financing vehicles set up by Jeffrey Epstein? It's a yes or no question.
Senator, I have worked tirelessly with the ethics officials at the Office of Government Ethics.
And you have not
come to an ethics agreement with them
and
have agreed, Senator, to sell all of my financial assets, including the Duquesne assets.
Are you refusing to tell us if you have investments, for example, in vehicles set up to advance Jeffrey Epstein? Is that what you're telling us? You just won't tell us?
Senator, what I'm telling you is that those assets that you represent at Juggernaut will be sold if I'm confirmed before I take office and sign the oath of office.
Let me follow up on that. Will you at least disclose how you plan to disclose and divest these secret assets? I'm sure you understand that the public might question your motives if, for example, billionaire Stanley Druckenmiller, who you honored in your opening statement, and who makes a living guessing what the Fed will do next, cuts you a massive check for $100 million as you take the oath of office to become the new Federal Reserve Chair.
Senator, as you know, it sounds like your fight might not be with me, but the Office of Government Ethics. I have come to full agreement with them and have agreed to divest all of those assets,
I'm asking
especially
you a very
those that you referenced
question,
before
Mr.
I take
Warsh,
the oath of office.
And that is, will you disclose how you divest those assets, or will you just collect a check for $100 million from someone whose whole business is betting on what the Fed will do?
As I said to the ethics officials at the Federal Reserve and the Office of Government Ethics,
I'll take that as a no as well.
I would be redeeming my assets before I take office.
Donald Trump has made clear that he does not want an independent Fed. In fact, he has said, and I quote, "Anybody that disagrees with me will never be Fed chairman." And he's made clear that you are his sock puppets, saying last week that interest rates will drop, quote, "when Kevin gets in." Yeah, I think they do. Not when economic conditions change, we'll get lower rates. Not when the economy needs it. Nope. He said, when my guy, Kevin Warsh, is in there, we'll get the interest rates that I, Donald Trump, wants. So independence takes courage. Let's check out your independence and your courage. We'll start easy. Mr. Warsh, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
We try to keep politics, if I'm confirmed, out of the Federal
I'm just
Reserve.
asking a factual question. I need to know, I need to measure your independence and your courage.
Senator, I believe that this body certified that election many years ago.
That's not the question I'm asking. I'm asking, did Donald Trump lose in 2020?
And I'm suggesting you in 2020, the Fed made a huge inflation problem, and you certified the election.
So let me ask another question.
Out of monetary policy.
In our meeting, you said you would be independent because you're, quote, a tough guy. Those were your words, tough guy. And you will be able to stand up to President Trump. So let's try it again. Name one aspect of President Trump's economic agenda with which you disagree.
Well, Senator, the Federal Reserve in recent years has wandered outside of its remit, wandered into other areas.
I'm asking for something.
That's not something I'm prepared to do.
Trump. on.
If I'm
Just
confirmed,
one economic-
the Federal
one
Reserve should stay in
economic
its
issue.
lane.
Just one little place where you disagree with Donald
Well, I
Trump.
do have a disagreement, actually, Senator, with the president. I think even this morning he said that he thought I was out of central casting. I think central casting, I'd look older, grayer, and maybe show up here with a cigar of sorts.
Quite adorable. But you know, we need a Fed chair who is independent. That's the only way we preserve the independence of the Federal Reserve. If you can't answer these questions, you don't have the courage and you don't have the independence.
I agree with you on independence, Senator.
Senator Rounds.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Warsh, first of all, welcome. And I appreciated the opportunity to visit with you personally within the office. I agree with you, and I think Fed independence is critical. And I think that's an item that you and I agree on wholeheartedly. I want to take an opportunity just to kind of perhaps give you an opportunity to respond. I know that the ranking member had a number of items that she expressed concerns with. I'd like to give you an opportunity to just kind of work this way through. And let me just ask you a few questions, and I'll allow you to take the time to fully answer the questions. As I understand, Mr. Warsh, you worked with the career ethics professionals at the Office of Government Ethics and at the Fed to come to an agreement in terms of your dissolution of some of the assets that you as a businessman have. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator, that is correct. I worked with the Fed ethics officials first, answered all of their questions, then with the career professionals, the Office of Government Ethics, answered all of their questions, and then they wrote up an ethics agreement, which is part of the public record. But because I agree with Senator Warren on the ethical questions that have been raised over the last several years by several people that were members of the FOMC, so that there's no question about my independence, no question about the clarity of my financial record, I agreed to divest virtually all of my financial assets, the large majority of which will be divested before I raise my right hand and am sworn into office if confirmed by this body. So I've gone above and beyond, not for any other special reason other than the Fed needs to reestablish its credibility because the conduct of policy depends on it.
So let me just, for the record, the agreement which you have signed clearly states that you have agreed to divest your assets that are in question within 90 days of confirmation if you have not already divested them. That is correct.
Yes, Senator. And in fact, the large majority of those assets will be divested before I am sworn into office if confirmed.
Thank you.